Today we have a very special guest. His name is Isaac Mehring. He's an 18-year-old real estate investor, completely virtual, and he lives in Vermont. So he came all the way from Vermont, and I want to share a story on how he got started, not only in the real estate investing, but just in entrepreneurship in general, because like I said, he's 18 years old, and he started this process when he was 16, really. So Isaac, can you first give the audience a brief introduction of just who you are, what you do, and what you got going right now?
Yeah, so I'm from a small town well, I live in Northfield, Vermont. It has like a population of like 5,000 people, so it's crazy when I come to places like Vegas and it's like so big, because this city is bigger than my whole state. So yeah, I'm from a small town, and in Vermont it's much more green. We have mountains too, so it's much different scenery than we are here. But basically, for me, I've always been an entrepreneur since I was pretty much born. I think I was born with it. I can remember like going in like kindergarten. My mom got me this money like board game, and I always loved like playing with money, trying to count coins, and trying to figure out always how I can hustle and make more money. And I remember like when I was 10, 11, 12, I was always on the computer trying to search up how to make money. So that just gives an idea of like how I was always like entrepreneurial. People ask all the time like how I even got into this, because some people don't realize like the real estate game or entrepreneurship game until they're like 25, 30. And I just feel like I was born with it, just always wanting to hustle and make money and create businesses, sell things. But yeah, so I am 18 now, and I just graduated high school a year ago, almost a year ago. And, honestly, for me, like school, it was kind of a waste because I've already like put myself out there to get into like a bigger entrepreneurship space. While I was in high school, I had a lawn care business that I did pretty successful at. I also like flipped cars, so I was already making way more than my peers. But I've always been frugal as well, so I never like went out and just spent the money. When I made it, I saved it and then reinvested it into my own education, as well as like, if I had a car I wanted to buy to go flip, I had to reinvest to make more money.
Wow.
So
Yeah, it's funny that you say that you felt like you were an entrepreneur from the beginning, because it's not the same, but it's very similar to me. So when I was younger, I essentially had always been really good at saving money, super frugal. I just learned from my parents really well to just save, save, save. It was never really so much invest, but I didn't have that entrepreneurial itch at the beginning. At the beginning, I was just really good at saving, and I was perfectly good sitting on that path to like a 9 to 5 until I did it. But for you, you said you already kind of felt that. So what was the first point in your life where you're like, no, this is my first entrepreneurial venture, whether it was like selling candy boxes or whatever it was? You said flipping cars in high school, but what was that the first, or like what was the first thing?
I can't really like say. I guess it would be. I hustled in middle school too, because I had to buy my own mountain bike and my dirt bike, and I think that was very beneficial from my parenting. My mom was like, if you want that stuff, you got to go make your own money. Like, she couldn't afford it. She's like, if you want to get your own bike, I got your bikes up until this point, but now it's your turn to go and make the money yourself. And if I wanted a dirt bike, I had to pay for that. So I was always trying to find side jobs, and it's really hard in middle school. And I've always really disliked how the whole system works, where it's like I can't get a job. I always wanted to just go and work, and I couldn't. But I think the first time I've actually like, flipped stuff, and it wasn't like a service-based job, was when I started flipping like lawnmowers, because I did that right before cars. And this was, I think, 2020 actually was when I really was starting to do this, because I also got my license that year, and I actually had to get help from like other people, like because I still had my permit and whatever. So whenever I had to go pick up a lawnmower, I still needed help, or when I would go flip something. But I started doing that when pretty much COVID was hitting, and I didn't want to do any schoolwork. We had virtual learning now, and then I basically just went on for my meetings in the morning. I didn't really do any schoolwork, and I went out and just worked all the rest of the day. I was always trying to find stuff on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, just go buy and resell. And I can remember these actually really two good deals I got on lawnmowers. I went down like an hour away from me is like Rutland, we call it Rut Vegas because it's like crazy. It's kind of like Vegas.
Okay.
But I was going for one lawnmower that was listed for like $300, or like $400 maybe, and then the guy's like, "Yeah, my mom just passed, and we don't need both these lawnmowers." And I was like, "Okay, would you just take $300 for both of them?" So I picked up both these for like $150 a piece, and then resold them for like $600 to $800.
Wow. So did you just know the market for lawnmowers? Like, what made you do that? Like, were you already mowing lawns as a service-based job or something? You're like, I kind of know how much these things cost.
Yeah, so like while I was in middle school, I was picking up the side jobs. I did lawn mowing, I cleaned up yards, and even when I was younger, it's interesting that I always hated when my mom forced me to like go somewhere to clean up a yard or do whatever. But then I ended up turning it into a business and made money off
Wow.
it. Yeah, so like I already knew like the lawn care industry and lawn mowing and how much lawnmowers were because I was looking to buy lawnmowers for my business. So once I saw, I was like, I could like just pick these up for, $200 because people just don't want them. Maybe they're like messy and I could just put some new filters on them, whatever, and just sell them for like $600 to $800. So
Wow. I think the fascinating thing about that is you might not realize it, but you had some type of expertise in some type of industry, the lawn care, and you utilize it to your advantage to go more like business oriented instead of like a service based thing. So, like I told you before this podcast, or this, it's for entrepreneurs in general.
Yep.
And a lot of people think that they can't get into something, can't flip something because they don't know the markets for these things. They don't know the market for houses, for shoes, for whatever they're trying to flip. But honestly, most people out there have some type of expertise, even if they're a consumer. Like maybe if they play a lot of video games or play a lot of books, like you have an idea of what these games cost, of what these game systems cost. Like you can flip that stuff.
Yep.
So you're using your expertise to your advantage, and I love that, man. So after that, like after you started flipping lawnmowers, I'm sure you saw some success. What was the next step or the next thoughts going through your head as far as like, okay, like if I could do this, like what was next for you?
So even though like I made, I guess, a good return on investment on those lawnmowers, at one point like I had a bunch of them, probably like 5 lawnmowers in the yard, and my mom and sister were like, "Oh my God, this is gonna look like a junkyard here."
Right.
But it was also, some of those just took longer than I thought, and they were like a pain. I've always had the problems with like the starters on them and batteries, and so when I went to go sell them, and then I'm like, "Oh my God, it like didn't start. Like now I gotta work on it again."
Right.
And when you think about it, like how much time I spent on that, and I made probably like $400 net. I was like, how can I go bigger? So even though it sounded like a good income at the time, I was like, okay, why not just do cars? I can make like $1,000 on a car, and it's the same process, probably the same amount of work that I'm just spending on these small lawnmowers, and I can make way more money. So that's why I ventured into the car space. I already had my own truck, so I understood like how to buy a vehicle. So then I think my first car flip was like a Subaru Forester. I was in auto class. I was at a tech school, and I was just scrolling through. I'm like, this car is like listed at like $1,200, and I'm like, these go for like $3,500. So I immediately texted the guy. I'm like, I'll come tonight. So I went and picked that one up, and yeah, I ended up making like 1 to 2K on that.
That's
car.
sweet.
So
that's sweet. Another thing that you naturally do, I don't know if you've noticed, like I said, but you're just aware. You're self-aware, and you're aware of your surroundings. And I think anyone going in business or entrepreneurship, if they can just know anytime they spend money, they have to think, okay, like, why did I spend this dollar? How did this person take my money? And if you just start being aware of how people market to you or advertise to you, and like how people get the money out of your pocket, you start realizing, okay, like these things cost this amount. This is how this is how I bought my car. Like this is where I found them, and you start realizing, okay, if I just like go to these places, buy these things at super cheap discounts, and then do what they're doing, I can make money. But it starts with a self-awareness. So I think it's really cool that from a young age you had that, man. Like not a lot of people start doing these kinds of things till they're like in their 20s. That was at least my journey. That's what a lot of my friends and the people I know in terms of their journey. Is there anything that like, I don't know, that happened to you during the middle school or the elementary school from your parents specifically, besides, because I know you mentioned your mom and dad had said, okay, like if you want this motorbike or cycle, you earn it. You have to do your stuff. Was there any values instilled in you at a young age? Because something's different. There's a reason. There has to be a reason why your head is doing this so early, and you're trying to do these ventures so early on, versus why a lot of people don't. So, is there anything you can think of that your parents instilled in you that causes you to like do these
So
things?
I've actually stumbled upon this question for myself because people always ask me like, how could you do this at so young? And when I went back to I'm pretty sure I was just born with it, and I've always tried to look into like, how was it because my parents, like what got me thinking at such a young age about this? And I don't know, it's just always hit me like I was just interested in doing this kind of stuff. Values wise, I would say the frugal side. I can tell you, I remember the day I realized I didn't like spending money. I don't think I ever did, but when I actually realized I didn't like spending money was when I looked at all of my past purchases and I was like, if I just saved all that money and didn't spend it, I would have X amount.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, and honestly, it didn't bring that much value to me. I just spent it. So I was like, all right, I'm just not going to spend money on crap like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I just saved it all. So I went out and worked, did like basically everything, like hustled here and there, and then, did the flips, and then just saved it all and then reinvested to make more. I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you
Sure.
where those maybe values actually came from. I mean, my mom has always been, I guess, financially, like she's always budgeted and watched her finances and her credit and stuff like that. But none of my family has been like super wealthy or anything.
Right. That's
So-
interesting because like we've talked before in the past, and we've discussed how we actually have a lot of similarities
Mhm.
coming up, like the upbringing and like learning that way. So I was just curious if anything popped up in your head that you're like, hey, this is probably where it came from, whether it was an uncle or someone who like pushed you or something like that. Everyone has a story, and I think everyone has a story to tell. So as you were, moving the transition from the lawnmower flipping to the car flipping, from that point, was there a point where you're like, this flipping thing is cool, I'm making money, but I want to do something else, or was it just the continuation of like, now I should flip houses? Like what was your thoughts like at the time?
So during that whole time, I was starting my lawn care business basically. It was all around the same time because once COVID hit, I was like, I just want to work all the time. And then I was also getting my license so I could actually drive myself to jobs. And then I have full control. Because when I was in middle school, I had to get my mom drive me there, and it was just always a pain. I probably made at this one job I push mowed the lawn for like 3 to 4 hours, and I probably got paid like $30-$40.
Wow.
So
Dang.
so then once I actually started, I learned how to price things. So like I used YouTube. Like I watched all the lawn care people how to price certain things, and then I just literally wrote out on a spreadsheet like certain lawn sizes, and then this is the price, so we could easily map it out. And then I learned different tools, and I guess I didn't realize, but I used a lawn care CRM.
Wow.
And I didn't know that until I started getting into real estate, like what it was. But yeah, I literally had my accounts, and each of them had their lawn sizes and the jobs, and I could like actually send them a bill, and they could do credit card payments. So I was doing all that lawn care stuff, and I was getting trying to like go full force. Like I set up my website, I got my LLC, and I knew if I set up on Google searches, I would be like, I could try to be the number one ranked. So I also got people to review it, and it really did work because there was a few people that called me and I got lawns for, and then they got referrals. And most of the time in that business, if you just do like good work and you show up and you try to go the extra mile, you answer the phone, like you can get clients and grow.
Right.
Because I had people that I answered, and she's like, oh my God, you actually answered. I tried like 5 other people and they didn't answer.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah.
Right.
And I went out to that lawn and I got it, and I got the job. But so also while doing that, on the side, I was working with an electrician. So when my mom knew I wanted to like flip houses, because I always, probably since like 15, 14, I wanted to get into real estate, flip houses, didn't really know how to do it. She had a friend who was an electrician, and then she mentioned to him, he's like, I mean, he can come and work in the field with us, kind of get to somewhat be in the real estate industry, which really isn't, but like, you know, you learn the blue collar stuff of electrical, and we worked with plumbers and all that. So that was, I got paid pretty well in that. When I stopped working, I was getting like $20 an hour at like 17, so that's pretty decent. So I also had that job, and then I also worked at like a tree farm, which I got paid like pretty much nothing, like minimum wage.
Gotcha.
That was my first.
Wait, what's a tree farm?
That's
all I was like, wait.
Okay. It's a Christmas tree farm. So
Wow.
yeah, we grow Christmas trees, we prune them, we fertilize, and so
Wow.
so throughout the season, like April is when we plant, then we fertilize, and then we prune towards the fall, and then in the winter, that's when we have open season cut, or we cut a ton of trees for wholesale, which means we're selling it to people probably down south where they're going to take them and sell them for themselves. But then we also open up to the public where they can come in and they pick out their tree and we cut it down for them. So that's basically what the job entailed.
And you said we. Is that like, where was that farm at? Was it with a partner? Like, what was it?
No. So it was in Brookfield. It was like 30 minutes from my house. This farm has been there for years and years, and actually it's like downsized. The owner is older, but his father actually started it, and they had like hundreds of acres of Christmas tree.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. Okay, so as you're progressing, you're now coming to the spot where you're like, hey, I was 17 doing all these things, and I know you did this. You're doing real estate investing at 17. So what was that switch of going from all these little ventures to like the big ticket items of houses? Like, when did that start in terms of? I know you said you're always thinking about going to real estate.
Yep.
But when did the action start?
So the action started, I would say, so after like 2020 when I was getting my stuff going for like lawn care and I was hustling, and then 2021 I was like, I want to get into like real estate. I want to just get around the people that are in real estate. Because at this point, you know, I was 16, turning 17. I'm like, I want to start now. At first, I thought I was going to be an agent, which I don't want to be now. So, you know, I was like, okay, I want to start like learning what properties values are like how do you actually be an agent. And I tried emailing different agents, and they didn't want me because I was too young. And we also worked with, you know, listing agents as an electrician, so I get to talk with them a little bit. But they still said I was too young to, like, even help them at all. And, like, oh, my God, I just want to learn. Like, I'll do anything. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't want me to just, you know, help them out. You know, now I kind of understand it. But for them, it was like, you know, if you're not 18, like, you can't really be a part of the legal side of being an agent. Right. So, so I wanted to start going to like meetups, and I was looking on Facebook, Bigger Pockets and everything. I'm like, is there anything in Vermont? And I ended up finding this flipper who was in Burlington. His company is Burlington House Buyers. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know we had like flippers in Vermont. Wow. That's crazy. So I was looking through his website. I'm like, that's cool. And then they ended up actually having meetups that they regularly or somewhat regularly held. Mm-hmm. So I found one, and then I put it in my calendar. I went to that one, and I think I was just barely turning 17. Might have been 16. I don't know. I showed up and like, you're young. Like, I got the same reaction I kind of do today, but they were like, wow, this is crazy. You're like already here, like surrounding yourself with other investors. Like, wow. And it's not like super big of I would call a RIA in Vermont, because I think we only have like 15 to 20 people come. And now, you know, from that point to now, I'm actually running these meetups. So that's pretty crazy that, you know, at one point I was like, is there actually meetups here? Like, can I go join? And I was super nervous when I showed up to this. Sure. I was like, oh my God, like these people are probably like millionaires, and I'm like just barely getting into this. This is like crazy.
And they are really receptive, that real estate investor meetup to you?
Yeah, like I realized that point, like everybody was just so chill. Yeah. Like everybody wanted to help everyone. and that was like my first taste of like really networking.
Okay, so I have two major thoughts, and
Yeah.
one was about the thing that we talked about earlier, but the first one is that I have found that when you're younger, not everyone's willing to help, but there's a certain group of people that are really willing to help, and it's the people who are honestly more entrepreneurial, more business minded. Because you told me right now that the people, the realtors you reached out to when you're young, they're like, no, like I don't want to waste my time.
Yep.
Versus you talk to the real estate investors, the business owners, because a lot of realtors say they're business owners, they're not. They're technicians. They're doing the service. They're serving people.
Right.
Whereas investors are more the business minded people. So those people were more willing to help, and that's what I found being younger as well, like going into the business. I'm like, man, like why is this group of people so much nicer and helpful than this other group of people? So that was one thought. The other thought I had was kind of a little bit backtrack a little bit. You talked about during your lawn care business that when you're young and when you're like just answering the phones, you're giving good service and good work as well, and going above an extra, like going that extra mile. What I've also found is that a lot of really good technicians. So I define technician as the person who has like the skill set, like the labor, the person doing the job. It could
Okay.
be, it could even be like sales. It could be like the person doing the work in the
Yep.
field, whatever the field is. Now, a lot of technicians are really good at their work, but they're horrible business people. So they can be really good lawnmower people, like they do best lawns ever, but they don't answer the phones. Or they don't go the extra mile with like a thank you note, whatever it is, the good business people do.
Yep.
Now, if you have both, or if you have a partner with someone, if you don't have that skill set, you can do both, you stand out like crazy. Because I've noticed this when I hire contractors for flipping. I'm like, man, this guy's so good, but just answer the phone. Like,
Right.
come on. Like, and then you start to realize it's like just how people's brains work, and not a lot of people learn to adapt and like learn both sides. So those are like two major things I wanted to point out because I think it's so important to know. Because the more you can understand and be aware of like how people are around you, the better off you're going to be with like dealing with them and understanding how to like motivate them the right way. So I thought that was fascinating. Now, as you're transitioning, as you know, you're going to this meetup when you're like 17 years old, really young, getting exposed. When did you actually buy the first property? Because I know throughout this podcast, you sound, you know, you're being very humble, but like you've done business, like
Yep.
from a young age, you're doing wholesale deals. I don't know if you're like flipping actually, but flipping, wholesaling, you're doing these things at a young age. Now, when was the first one, and like describe how you were even feeling,
Yeah.
confidence-wise throughout that thing?
Yeah, so in 2021, when I was like, okay, I want to just surround myself with other people, and like you said, yeah, the investors and business people like were more open to talking with me. So I was like, all right, I'm not gonna talk to these agents that want nothing to do with me unless I'm 18. And I've always had this thing where it's like I hate where younger people aren't allowed to do anything, right? So I've always gone against the rules. So like I'm like I'm just gonna do it. Like
Right.
I can physically do this. I'm a human being. Why does it matter how old I am? I don't have to wait another few years.
Yeah, who's gonna stop me?
Yeah. So yeah, that's what kind of dragged me more towards the investing side. I'm like, I can do this. I can actually talk to these people and learn, which also got me to call someone's bandit sign. And he ended up being like a big multifamily investor, and he invited me out to his. He had 2 closings, I think, that day. So we walked through one or a couple properties, and we were speaking with the owners. So that was like a good experience. And then the reason I'm getting to this is because when I hung out with these entrepreneurs and investors and business owners, like I realized, okay, this is where I'm really learning a lot. And Kong that year, that fall of 2021, he posted that he's having a meetup in Maryland. I'm like, Maryland's not that far. It's like 10 hours away from me. So I was like, all right, I'll just buy the ticket and we're going to go. Because I knew the value already from, probably like 5 months beforehand of just hanging out with investors, going to these meetups. I'm like, this is going to be some really good value is meeting Kong and meeting, there's like 50 other people in this room that are doing the same thing or interested in the same stuff I am. So that was my first big leap too, because it was like $1,000 ticket, and I'm like, I've never spent this much on coaching or any masterminds, but I spent that, and then I met someone there. Her name was Ashley, and we ended up getting in contact afterwards because I got her card. And this is something where if you go to masterminds, just like I was at this week, if you go to a mastermind and don't talk to people that you met afterwards, you got to establish that relationship and follow through with it. So I ended up, connecting with her after we probably talked like every couple weeks or every week, and she ended up having a deal that she got under contract and she needed help finding a buyer. So she reached out to me. She's like, hey, I have these 2 deals if you want to like see if you can find a buyer. And there was one I was like, probably can't find one on that. And there's the other one, like, ooh, this one looks like a deal. And I did have like immediate like limiting factor where I was almost like, I probably can't sell this. Like, there's no way I'm going to deal with like actually sell this. I've never done something like this before. But then I was like, I'm just going to send it out and do it. I'm just going to wing it, whatever. And then so I posted it on Facebook groups. I reached out to other buyers. I was texting and emailing them. And then I actually got that one sold. And I was super like ecstatic like that evening because I was talking to all these buyers and I've never done that before. And I was like, these people are actually interested in this property. I'm actually going to sell this thing.
Right.
So, because like we got so much attention because it was a good deal and I just never seen that before.
Right.
So yeah, at that moment I was like, holy crap. Like I was looking at the numbers. I can't remember right now. I think she had it under contract, I believe, for $160,000. And then she was going to list it out there for $168,000. But I negotiated with a buyer to get him up to like $180,000.
Wow.
Because, and at the $168,000, she's like, okay, well, it's a small assignment fee. I got the deal. If you find a buyer, we can do like a 70-30 or 60-40 split.
Right.
I'm like, all right, what happens if I find a buyer that like can pay more? Can we do like a 50-50? And she's like, yeah, we could do that. So I ended up finding a buyer, actually $12,000 more, and we ended up splitting 50-50. So I got her $2,000 more than she was even asking for at the beginning.
And you got money.
And then I got more than, the original assignment fee too. So I got $10K. And even negotiating with buyers, and we had a couple of buyers that we were at the 180 price point because I really pushed them like, hey, we have a ton of interest. Like, can you guys just pay like 180? One was messing around. Like, he wasn't signing the contract, and he came up with all these excuses like the contract wasn't right. And I'm like, I'm not messing with you anymore. Like, you're not just gonna sign this. And then so I reached out to the other guy, and I'm like, dude, I was literally at school. I called him. I was like, if you want this at 180, we can send you the contract right now, and you can get it signed. He's like, okay. So I literally closed it right at school, and then that was a good feeling because I was like, wow, I just negotiated and closed that. And I've always been a negotiator, like we talked about. I was flipping lawnmowers and cars, so I was always like texting people on Marketplace, and then I always had a strategy of giving the offer on Marketplace and then going there and then checking it out and then trying to negotiate more. So when I was like, oh my God, I actually like just closed this deal and I'm going to make $10K and I negotiated a real estate transaction. Like, this is crazy. But then after that, I was like, okay, he signed it. Now we're just at the waiting game. Because then he put his earnest money in. Like, okay, this is non-refundable. We're guaranteed to get a little bit of money if he ends up backing out. And then we just waited 30 days, and then closing came. And I called up the title company, and they next day shipped me my $10K check.
That is sweet. That's amazing. Yeah. So that happened at 17?
That was at 17, yeah.
That's crazy, man. So a couple things, man. One is you mentioned that when you first got that deal, when she first sent it to you, you're like, it's a really good deal, but like, I don't even think I could do this. I know that exact thought because that's the thought that people feel before they do something new and they've never done before. Because you don't have the proof of concept that you've done it before. You might have heard that other people have done it before, but you're like, I'm not like them. How would I do this? Until you do it. And so the coolest thing about that is to even get to that point, you've done a lot of mini things, like mini baby steps to get to that point. Like you've done negotiating before for your past things, for the lawn care, for the cars. So like all the little things, and like it's all baby steps. So what I tend to preach is that especially when you're young, it's really hard to go wrong with learning skill sets, with learning sales or whatever, any skill set that you want to learn, like just learn it because later on there's probably going to be a use for it. Like you might not have realized that back then when you're doing the flipping cars, you wouldn't have realized, okay, like that you're going to be flipping real estate fully down the road. Maybe you did because you had an idea, but often you can utilize a lot of skills when you're young, like way, 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 way deeper. So as you're younger, just learn skills, invest in yourself, and you're paying for these educations too. Like you're going to a big meetup, That's a massive investment when you're young. So I applaud you for that, man. That's really cool. Now, as you, like, this isn't a real estate podcast, but as you've done more of these real estate deals, flipping, wholesaling, whatnot, has there been a realization of, okay, this is really good. It's a really good money generating activity, but this might not be for me. Because a lot of people love flipping, a lot of people don't. Now, I do actively flip, actively wholesale, actively do real estate deals, but I've realized that for me personally, there's other aspects of my life that I really enjoy more in terms of making money and like what I envision my path looking like. So what's next for you? Like maybe it is still more real estate, but like what are you planning now? Like what's the stuff that you want to do, how you want your time spent? Like walk me through that.
Yeah, so for me, like, my next steps, I've always loved this business stuff, and I'm getting some success in the real estate. So right now I'm also trying to figure out my systems to just systematize my real estate so I'm not, like, doing everything. Because honestly, the real estate side, you know, there's a lot of stuff I do enjoy about it, but then the other stuff I'm like, I just hate this so much. So, like, I just want to, like, hire that out, and then, because I know how to run a real estate business by surrounding myself with other people and all this education and actually going out and doing the flip, then I'm like, I want to use my knowledge to just make the money. So I don't believe real estate is the end goal, but it's like my first vehicle to get me where I want to go. And also learn a lot of things along the way where I can share it with other people. So I also create content just like you, and I love doing that. I've created content since I was in middle school. Like, I talked about my dirt bike. I made moto vlogs, and I was always watching these other YouTubers. I was like, okay, I want to do this. And I made, like, crazy dumb stuff, but, like, I was like, all right, I don't know. This is an idea. I'm just going to make a video, whatever. It's going to be stupid. I also made, like, videos while I was in school. I made, like, school days with Isaac, and I made, like, 2 of them. Yeah, it was also really funny because one of my classmates, they knew about the YouTube channel, and then while they were in TA, they were, like, literally watched all my videos on my channel. Like, they came in, like, after a TA, and they're like, yeah, we were just watching all your videos and stuff. I'm like, I was almost a little embarrassed, but then I was like, whatever.
Yeah, it's
fine. Because they're all kind of crapping on them. Like, I know they're bad, but who cares?
Yeah. That's a big mindset. So I still want to go more in the content creation of you, but the thing I want to touch on is that exact feeling like, man, these videos suck, but I'm just going to post them anyways. Like, that's how you crush it. Because my first videos, this is like technically like 3 years ago, for just like from Instagram or, yeah, not even TikTok, but Instagram video stories, like posts like that, I would start talking to the camera and they're horrible. Like, I was like, man, I'd look back recently, I'm like, these are so bad. Yeah. And everyone called me out, like my family, my friends, strangers, like, dude, these suck. I'm like, it's just, I'm gonna keep going, like, whatever. And then now, over time, it's like, they're still a work in progress, but they're so much better than they were. And now people actually watch them who are like a very targeted audience. So before, I would just try to get views, just view everything views. It doesn't matter who the person is. Now it's very targeted. It's like, now I want a specific type of person watching my videos. The 18 to 24-year-old, most likely male, interested in real estate, hates their 9-to-5, entrepreneurial. Like, there's a very targeted person now. And so I know that when they're watching them, leaving the comments, I'm like, perfect. Like, this is exactly who I'm getting. But at the beginning, I was like, I just want to, like, I felt so bad about my videos. And even now, as I create content, like 2 months back, I can watch a video, like, I'm like almost embarrassed. I'm like, this is so cringy, it's so bad. From like a month ago too. Yeah. Because whenever I post, the videos I make today don't get posted for like 2 months. Like, so it makes me really look back and think, oh, like, I'm improving, but it's like I almost don't want to post it.
Yeah, mine are pretty similar right now because I have an editor and I have them scheduled out pretty much right now almost all of February. So I already filmed those, you know, the last month, and then they're getting posted like February.
Wow, so. Yeah. So is that something you think you envision yourself doing for the long run?
Like, yeah, I think, so content's always been there too. So I think content, real estate, business, it's like always been a part of me since I was like just, you know, in middle school, I would say. And I mean, it's basically why I'm here now and why people like ask, oh, how can you do this at like 18? Like, I've never thought of this. Like, I've always wanted to do this stuff though. That was the difference for me. And I always like watch these younger YouTubers too, and they were like probably 16 at the time. I thought they were like pretty old because I was young, but I always also was really conscientious of when I posted my videos, like clickbait titles and like thumbnails. So I was always trying to like, whenever I was thinking of ideas, I'm like, okay, I can make this video and like have this type of clickbait title and thumbnail. And that's like, I think middle school is when they really like, these YouTubers, like bigger ones, like did bad clickbait.
Oh yeah.
Like you had like the younger Jake Pauls and like,
Yeah.
I know I watched Tanner Brongart, and you also had Roman Atwoods, and I watched Street Speed 717. And you know, all these YouTubers use clickbait like really hard.
Right. And the thing about that is like they did it because that's what YouTube and the algorithm incentivized. So they incentivized just views. So like more views, like you had to get people to click, which is make the crazy thumbnails. Versus now, it still works, the clickbait, but now the YouTube algorithm cares about the watch time and their audience retention. So now it's like it's not as effective. So the thing about that is in any industry, any business, any entrepreneurial venture, if you understand the rules of the game, you just have to play to the rules. So like in life and in income, if you want to not pay taxes, well, you probably should buy a lot of rentals and like put your money into these assets where you can like legally not pay taxes.
Yeah.
So you just have to really learn the rules to the game to everything. Now, what I'm curious about, because in every podcast I usually have a guest on because I want to ask selfish questions too.
Okay.
So I've noticed you actually have really good thumbnails.
Really?
And
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
I like your thumbnails a lot. And right now I'm in the process of trying to find a specific thumbnail person, like a virtual assistant to help me out with that. But in terms of like education for YouTube, are you in any type of courses, coaching? What are things that you do or have learned that you can like give like, I don't know, 1-2 little snippets of here's like how to make the best thumbnails or like, anything that you can think of? Because I'm looking to improve.
So I think my first course I've ever bought was Graham Stephan's YouTube Academy.
That was mine. That was mine too.
And I got it when I was on sale. I was like, it was only like $200, I think.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, that's like cheap. But like then I'm like, oh my God, like $200, should I do it? I don't know. And then I just did it because I want to do this YouTube thing. I want to learn it. So I went through his whole course and I learned a bunch about SEO and everything that he has in his course. But now I'm in Creator Now, which is Eric's new, I guess, coaching program for YouTube and content creators, everybody. But I guess something that I've just learned is just, now it's like just make a good video. Make a good video and post consistently, especially because you also have shorts now. Like everybody says it like, oh my God, you guys have no idea. Making shorts and going viral is like so much easier than it used to be, which it is. Like right now I'm using, and if you're a creator, you can use shorts as basically like an ad copy for your channel. So you can post these TikToks, your shorts, your reels, and you can give them little bits and pieces to get them hooked. And you're going to give them value, but they're going to also want to know a little bit more, like in detail. So then it kind of brings them to your like YouTube channel, which right now is like the highest paying type of content you can make, because TikTok, you know, they barely pay anything unless you get really good sponsorships. But you really want them to be in your YouTube side of your content space, because that's where you can really monetize and create a good like relationship with your audience, I think. So
100%.
that would be something like if you're a starting creator, like just post consistently on shorts and reels, and on YouTube videos. So right now I'm doing 5 days a week for shorts and then 1 YouTube video a week. So that's going to be 1 long form for them to come and check out the bits and pieces of details. But 5 shorts that literally like hit 2,000 to 3,000 people per video. And not everybody's going to like them, but they're also going to want to be like, okay, who's this?
I'm curious.
And then that's basically how ad marketing works. Like if you even go to like Facebook ads, like they want to see you want to see the ad copy, and then you click on the ad copy, it brings you to the website, and then you know they try to make the sale. So it's like you have this ad copy of your TikTok or reel, and then like okay, then they want to check out your account, they go to your YouTube and they subscribe, or they follow your Instagram, whatever it is.
It's cool, man. And yeah, the thing is, you just don't stop. Like if you stop, you can't get it, because like YouTube, like you said, it's where you can build the best relationship with your audience, but it's also such a long play. And that's something that I've personally realized as well is pretty much all the interns that have worked for me are employees or people who are just willing to help me bring money or bring deals to me. Like there's a lot of things that I can get from social, or I have been. And most of them have said before giving me anything, like, dude, like I watch your YouTube for over a year. I'm like, oh, so you know me, because these are like 10-minute videos, and some people are like, dude, I binged your channel. I was like,
Yeah.
really? And so it's like, if someone watches that much of you for that kind of long form content, they know you. It's so different than someone looking at your TikToks and Instagram. So that's why, Isaac's mentioning to push the YouTube, and I think it's super valuable. So I love that, man. I love your story. Now, as we wrap up this episode, is there anything that the audience can bring to you that you're looking for, whether it's deals in wherever you're looking for, Nashville, wherever it is, or your YouTube? Like, this is your chance to plug. So what do you want to plug?
Yeah, I mean, I'll plug my YouTube. So all across all socials, actually, is just my name, Isaac Maring. It's spelled with a IZAACMARING. My name's a little bit different. I know, it's unique, though. I like it.
Sweet.
And for real estate side, I would look at anything in Vermont. I'm focused on Tennessee market. And if you happen to have, like, a multifamily deal that's whether creative finance or it's just a deal in general, I'm trying to move there in a house hack, so if you have something, I'd love to take a look at them and see how we can, make a deal.
Sweet. And if someone wanted to bring something to you specifically and actually communicate directly, what's the best place?
The best place to communicate is probably just Instagram DMs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Instagram DMs at Isaac Maring?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And then all of Isaac's social media links will be added to the episode description below. But Isaac, one final thing. If you were to give the audience a message, just like a leave away or takeaway message, it doesn't have to be entrepreneur, whatever message you were trying to push out there, what would you share?
So actually, I want to touch on so this year, 2023, I think it's going to be so big. And I guess you could say, 2022 could have been so big. But this year, I see this big shift coming, and I just feel it. Especially when we're on the real estate side, we have this market where we kind of just came down a little bit, but I think we're stabilizing. We also seen stocks and crypto all over the place last year, and I think now could be a great time for people to just go after it. And if they just put in the work, if you go all in for a whole year and don't have any distractions and just work on your skills, just wing it. Honestly, when I go back to my lawn care, or even when I flipped, I just wing it, and then I figure it out and I got better. So if you're young, and like Justin was saying, this is a really good time to work on your skill sets and your knowledge. So just work on that now, and you'll see the returns later because they'll compound on themselves. People talk about compound interest and investing in the stock market early. Invest in yourself early, because that will compound so much more, and you'll actually see results quicker.
Awesome. I love that message, man. Well, I appreciate you so much for being on. It means a lot to me. I know the audience will get a lot of value out of this. And like I said, or like you mentioned, if you want to reach out to Isaac, bring him anything of value, you want to learn from him, you want to bring him something, reach out to him. His social media links will be in the description below. But otherwise, thank you for listening. Peace.